Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next session. We now have the session with Giselle and Jiun, and I would like to give a shout out to Hesse Jones, first of all, for introducing us to these amazing two speakers today. If it wasn't for her, that we wouldn't be able to hear their experiences. So thank you, Hesse. And I do apologize for my lightning. The Michigan sun decided to play a game on me. So I do know that it's a bit dark. The session, It's Time to Invest in Underestimated Founders, will be a discussion between two venture investment executives who will tell their stories and provide their hope and vision for making a significant impact for innovators in these communities. Giselle has founded Matter Ventures to invest in her #1 draft picks in the game of entrepreneurship, underrepresented founders. She's partner and head in investment banking at Thorne & Associates, co-founder and CEO at Niche Studio, which is a software development corporation. Jiun is the head of diversity and inclusion at Samsung Next. In her role, she strengthens internal support programs for underrepresented groups and leads strategy and thought leadership to increase Next engagement with underrepresented founders. Just as a reminder, like other sessions, we will not have a Q&A, but if there is time, we will take chat questions. Giselle, Jiun, I just want to get your permission again if it is okay to take screenshots during the session for any social media shares.
Sure.
Cool. Thanks a lot. And just as a reminder, Giselle, I believe you have signed up for the 15-minute AMA on Twitter after the session.
Sure, yeah. Any questions, we'll defer them to Twitter.
Cool. I'll pass it on to you both, and thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. And I guess welcome to our session. It's time. It's time to invest in underestimated founders, and take a position that it takes a village to establish equity for underestimated, what I believe, brilliant underestimated founders to thrive. My name is Giselle, and I'm joined by Jiun Kimm, and we're here, I think, to provide you our perspectives when it comes to creating the necessary access to capital, to resources, to mentorship, essentially within a system that requires a lot of change, but definitely a change in mindset and structure towards inclusion in investments. Myself, as thank you was shared, Merv. I'm co-founder and CEO of Niche Studio, and a partner at Thorne & Associates. And I'm just going to open up a slide here and share a little bit of information on the topic for today. So I don't know if I can share screen. Do I have an option to share screen?
You should. And Dwight, can you allow Giselle to share the screen?
I think I got it. Okay. Okay. So essentially we're saying, look, it's time. And I think it's smart. It's also smart to invest in underestimated founders. Many reasons why, many of we can probably pick up and focus on during our Q&A. Like I said, it takes a village, and I'm really, really excited to be joined by and having this discussion with Jiun. This is me, and I'll hand it over to Jiun to introduce herself as well.
Thanks, Giselle. Hi, everyone. I'm Jiun. I'm the head of diversity and inclusion at Next. And to make my bio a little bit more real, just a little bit about how I came into this work. And so I've been doing it in different forms for all of my career. I started off in the education space. I was a teacher in Harlem for a number of years. I coached teachers in the Bronx and Queens before I started leading D&I work, both in the nonprofit, philanthropic, and then the now in the tech space. And those beginning experiences in my career are really important, because I think as a practitioner, this work is about working across lines of difference, building authentic relationships, really understanding how your work is impacting people and communities. And I had the privilege of doing that work on the ground within communities and really thinking and seeing how equity and lack of inequity plays out. And so that's what's led me here today, and happy and excited to talk more and have this conversation with Giselle. And the other thing, just before we get started, that I wanted to note is that I've been able to tune into many of today's sessions, which have been really wonderful. And it's clear that the recent situation is there's a lot of pain for a lot of us. And so I think for me, it just underscores something, that probably sounds obvious, which is that D&I work is really hard. And we'll be talking more about this throughout the session. And so when we're doing work that's fundamentally about changing people's on an individual and systemic levels, deep-seated beliefs that are steeped in bias and kind of have been built into who we are as people, obviously bad things, like really bad things, continue to happen and impact some of the most marginalized people that we see in this industry. But I've been really encouraged by a lot of what I've been hearing throughout the day. So thank you all, and look forward to talking more with Giselle in this next bit of time that we have with everyone.
Awesome. So let's see who, I guess I get to ask some questions first. As a D&I leader, Jian,
Yes.
how do you define D&I?
Mm-hmm.
And why do you believe having a dedicated role like yours is important for your organization and in general?
Yeah. So ultimately, I would say D&I work is about recognizing and reducing, and when we're doing it at our best, reversing the marginalization of women, people of color, LGBTQ+ people, anyone who's been historically marginalized in this industry, in society, by eliminating barriers to representation, but also ensuring we're building organizations that are actually inclusive places that we want to work. And there are a number of speakers before me who have reiterated this. And I think we saw the downfall at the beginning of D&I coming up in big tech, where all of the focus was just on representation, so getting people in the doors. And unsurprisingly, what we saw is that those people don't want to stay at these companies. And so this parallel process of thinking about representation in terms of diversity alongside inclusion is so very important. And the other thing that I say is that ultimately it's change management work, helping organizations detach from the status quo, pushing them to change and believe in a different vision. And so that paradigm shift that needs to happen is really important. And I think the reality is that this work that we're doing is fundamentally, it's counter to the goals and the values of the tech industry in a lot of ways. This is an industry built on, at times, like elitism and meritocracy and capitalism, and D&I is asking you to think about those things in a different way. And so I think, unsurprisingly, when we see the lack of progress that's been made, that's what that's about. And so, when we're tackling things on such a broad, not just about combating individual behaviors, but shifting institutional and systemic structures, that's what this work is trying to do. And I think the other thing that I think a lot about that, is kind of ironic to me, is that tech is particularly an industry that prides itself on fast-moving change and innovation, yet has been painstakingly slow to make progress in this area. And so again, I think that's tied to how challenging and deep-suited this work is. And to your question of having a dedicated role, I think it's so important to have a dedicated role. I think you need someone who's kind of leading and guiding the way, but most importantly, you need someone to hold people, and particularly individuals in positions of power, accountable to getting the work done. And so I think at its best, D&I leaders are empowered to make impact across the business. They have direct access to those with the most power in the organization, and they have the resources, space, and the buy-in to be successful. And I think just doubling down here, that these roles can only be successful if they're supported materially and emotionally with the right support. And so a lot of times you see these 1 or 2 person D&I teams that are like carrying all of that weight. And so you have to give them the actual support to get the work done. But again, overall, I believe it's incredibly important for roles or for companies to have these dedicated positions. So great question to start out with, Giselle. And so I've talked a little bit about these roles as helping to inform a larger transformation within tech. And I'd love to hear from you about, what is the importance of coalition building in the work? And we touched a little bit about that. And can you tell us more about how you've seen that be successful?
Yeah, so coalition for me, the non-Webster dictionary version. First of all, I look at this event. At MIA kickstarted. Hessie invited me to. I met you in the process, and there's a number of people that are listening to us speak now. And I look at this as a coalition, like one example of a coalition, right? We can look at it this way. We can look at it as a global play. I think more than ever before with COVID, we're seeing that there's an opportunity for us to engage the globe. When I say the globe, people from all areas of the world. I'm in Canada right now. But that effectively puts all of us 1 to 2 degrees away from being able to have conversations and bring together resources from anywhere in the world. And so with everything that's happening now, and we're all, I think we're all together here because we recognize that there's things that need to change.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's an opportunity for us to either do something as a coalition, as a group, as a number of different nodes coming together to solve these problems. Probably the best opportunity is now for us to do that. Hessie who invited me to this event. I'm grateful for it because anything that I share, I'm also learning as much as I'm sharing, and that requires a coalition. So just the learning part, being able to learn from people from all around the world with different perspectives. I'm certain that after I leave this call, I can then share something that I've learned from this group with others in my network. Then how does it apply to this world that we're stepping into now, into the VC space? I say this arguably, VCs are known to invest capital, which is fantastic. It's like, especially.
Giselle, for me, you're frozen. I don't know if that's for anyone else.
I think it's Giselle's.
Oh. Yeah, I'll chat her. Sorry, y'all.
No, I'm doing it. I'm
Wonder
doing it as well.
Of Zoom and
I love her background.
She's got a great background.
Can I just say that?
A more interesting background than I have with that brick wall. Oh no, I think. Okay, maybe she's signing, coming back on, and perhaps she can keep her video off. Maybe that'll help.
Yeah, we got her. I think she's signing back in now.
Okay, perfect. Are we the first person, the first panelist to have the internet issues?
No, I think 2020 being what it is,
Yeah.
we're all personally, very experienced in frozen screens. Oh, I was on mute. I was talking to myself. So.
Yeah, all the things.
I mean, for me, I was laughing earlier because we did a lightning check in the morning to ensure that you could see all the background. And like I said, the sun and the weather was not informed of that. Would you like to, while we're waiting for Giselle, would you like to, she just joined, I think. All right. Give her a few more seconds.
Hello.
Hello. So
Oh,
my Wi-Fi just died. I'm on my phone. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah. No,
We're all good. All good.
and it looks
Okay,
great.
awesome. So I don't know at what point I froze. But I know I go for it.
Oh, you were starting to talk about just ventures being about investing in capital and how important that is.
Yeah. So capital is big. Arguably, your network and access to a network arguably is more important even than capital. So tying back into the coalition, I think if we've all been in business to some degree to know that, you know, you can invest, which is obviously we're incredibly underinvested in this space. That is without a doubt. I don't think any more data is needed to prove that. Okay, we've seen the data 1,000 times. I don't think anybody needs to see any more data. But arguably, network is equally as valuable and powerful. And so tying into coalition, we've seen it, we've all seen it, if not directly, indirectly, where a business has an opportunity to grow and scale or close a deal or move the needle because they know somebody. How many deals are done on napkins? How many deals are done because somebody's cousin knows somebody's bird's friend's uncle's sister? That's how business is done. So this idea of coalition, and that's, you know, I think, and I'm looking at it from a positive standpoint, is if we come together as these disparate nodes from other areas of the world, and we come together and we actually address this as a collective, then we can move the needle, right? So that's one thing, but it also requires a long-term plan, I believe. It's not something that's going to be fixed overnight. I look at this as a 25, 50-year plan. We've been in this situation for 400 plus years. It's not going to be one VC firm or me or Hesse or anybody on this call that's going to fix this. It has to be a collective effort. And so I welcome anybody who's even remotely interested in supporting underestimated founders, that it can be through capital, it can be through expertise, right? I know everybody, there's more mentors than we need, but it doesn't change the fact that this requires a group effort or a coalition to come together to address this issue.
Yeah, 100% agree with that.
And so because my computer died, I'm going to ask you, Jan, to maybe go through some questions. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And so the next thing that Giselle wanted, so yeah, 100% agree with that. And it's so interesting to me because I think we're working in an industry that's naturally very competitive, and sometimes I feel like this inclination to coalition build is not doesn't feel as inherent or natural. And so I think it's like a skill we need to build, and we need to model what that looks like. And so definitely agree with all that. And so the next part that we just wanted to talk about from just the next perspective on a very, on an organizational level is how we at Next are working on building accessible and inclusive networks with underrepresented founders, as Giselle was talking about. So here at Next, we have, I would say this mainly operates through DFI. This is our Diverse Founders Initiative. So in partnership with our ventures team. And so through this initiative, we engage in a number of different efforts. Of course, our main goal here is to invest in more underrepresented founders aligned to our core thesis areas, but also engaging in the work that Giselle was talking about, that's about contributing to building a more inclusive ventures ecosystem through a lot of this coalition building. So we ensure that we set intentional goals and investing in and also building relationships with both underrepresented founders and VCs. We partnered with a lot of organizations, so Techstars as an example, they help us clear pathways by fast tracking referrals of underrepresented founders to Techstars, and they help us by broadening our network through their referrals. We have a partnership with Black Women Talk Tech that led to one of the most comprehensive studies on Black women founders that we've seen in a while, and that was really exciting. And throughout the year, we've just tried to do as much as we can to participate and show up at events that have targeted efforts for these communities. And as a global company, so we operate in Berlin, New York City, Seoul, Silicon Valley. I think I got all of them. Yeah. So as a global community, we're also thinking about, what does that look like regionally? And so, for example, in Europe, we have targeted efforts that highlight the immigrant founder experience, because that's a really important a group that the ecosystem looks at and help them get connected. But overall in 2021, we feel like we're just scratching the surface. This function, the D&I function here at Next, is a year old, and so there's a lot more growing to do. And so we're really excited about that, and just ensuring that we're building a space where that accessible pathway to investors becomes the norm and not the exception. And so, yeah, that's what we've got going on at Next. And so, Giselle, for you, you've been on both sides of the equation, and you're doing great work in your role. And so, understanding all the challenges and barriers, what do you think investors, stakeholders, and broadly all players within the ecosystem need to do to remove barriers for underrepresented and underestimated founders?
I mean, the blanket answer is this. All things that are available to non-underestimated founders, make it available to everybody else. It's not rocket science, right? Access to capital, access to networks, opportunities, right? A change, but definitely a change in mindset. A change in mindset, which I blows my mind. I still can't figure out that underestimated founders are some of the most innovative individuals we've seen. And it's not in Canada, it's not in the US, it's right across the globe. And so I think mindset is probably the biggest piece, because with an open change in mindset, everything else will flow. But if you're looking for concrete, if we were just speaking in the realm of VC, I think, again, many people have spoken about it, but I'm going to go through it again. You put capital in the hands of underestimated VC like myself or other underrepresented VCs. What happens is a trickle down effect, right? A number of leaders in the VC space have spoken about this. When you put and invest capital, which are LPs, limited partners, they go and they invest capital into VC funds. Those VC funds are then investing in other underestimated founders. Naturally, also what happens is a lot of the startup employees and those that work and partner with those new ventures or early stage ventures are also diverse. So they are also underestimated, or Black, Latina, Indigenous, women, people of color. Mm-hmm. Naturally, you're going to see that diversity within the teams as well, right? And then I think it was Tone Low says it, as then the magic happens when these companies start to experience a liquidity event. Now what happens is those founders are taken down the path, a wealth creation path. They're taking down the wealth creation path. Their early stage employees are taking down the wealth creation path, and these end up being the very people that reinvest into the innovation economy, thereby kickstarting the next wave of new ventures and the next wave of startup employees that are also diverse. And then to add to that, once exits happen, once an investor does well, and there's no reason they shouldn't, again, underestimated founders are being known to outperform. Once they make their money back and now they're all happy and convinced that the money can be made, they're going to double down and triple down into a larger fund and put more money and more capital into that fund. And the cycle of impact continues. So I don't think it's rocket science. I don't think I'm sharing anything that others haven't shared. So the only thing that I can be, I'm left with is it's a change in mindset. It's a change in mindset. This is not a charity. This is the biggest investment opportunity that exists today. And am I biased? Yes, but I'm putting my own capital and my own resources behind that. This is not some dreamy, airy idea that I have. I too am putting my capital, because it is the biggest investment opportunity that exists. So more mentors, great. More resources, great. But we all know that in order for businesses to thrive, in order for wealth creation to happen among, we'll call them underestimated citizens, wealth creation is key. And I'm a firm believer that economic empowerment through entrepreneurship is the way to go.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. The culture, the change in mindset, the culture change, I feel like is where we really need to shift a lot of the conversation, because to your point, we know where the disparity lies. Like, we have all that data.
Yeah. So I have a question for you, Jan.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm curious what you think in this regard. I don't know if you've experienced underrepresented founders or come across them, learned about their challenges, their barriers, their experiences. What have you heard in terms of the barriers that they face?
Yeah. I mean, I think there are so many stories about barriers, and it's told in the data, which we're talking about, because we know that about 80% of ventures funding goes to white men. And so it is very clear that if you don't fall into that group, that you are facing challenges and having hard experiences. And I think this goes back to what I was saying before about the systemic nature of this work, is that VC is not immune to the systemic racism and all of the isms that permeate all of society, and therefore impact this industry. And so we see a lot of, there's stories of bias, and there's stories of just kind of those feelings of exclusion throughout this process. And what we do know is, for quite some time, women and people of color in VC have been trying really hard to point out these problems and shed light on the problems in terms of disparity of funding. And then, of course, we saw this amplified over the summer after the murder of George Floyd. And I think I have opinions on if that momentum has sustained or not. And so I think, I bring that up because I think what we've learned as a whole, of course, is that the industry is not talking enough, they're not doing enough, and don't know enough about the realities of these funders throughout these founders throughout the entire process. And so, to your earlier point, Giselle, about like, we don't need any more data, I agree that we don't need any more data, but I think in terms of qualitative data, from the beginning of a founder's experience, like through the whole process, I think that's where we should start trying to collect more data with the goal of shedding more light and having more narrative about there, because I do think that data and stories can compel action. So something that I feel like we need to get better at is really understanding the specific barriers, like from that point of ideation and the entire process of meeting with investors, all those struggles that come up in terms of combating biases for these founders, because it's real. And I think it's just something that we don't talk about enough. We might talk about in like our own circles. And I was just talking to someone yesterday, actually, about he's a VC, an Asian American man, and just we were having a conversation like this, and we were like, how do we have more of these? And how do we do it across more lines of difference? And because this is where like we start learning and changing. So I think there's a ton that we all can do throughout the industry to kind of lift up the experiences of all of these founders. And so Giselle, I'm going to go back and ask you about so yeah, any thoughts on what I just shared, and then also just curious what you think about and see in this regard as well. So the challenges that you may have faced in your own career, and what advice might you have for any founders who are here with us today about how to succeed in this ecosystem where there's a lot of challenges. Big question.
Big question. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 12. Okay. I'm in my 40s, so just to put that in perspective. So I use that as an example to say, look, there's going to be barriers. There are always going to be barriers, right? I think the only thing that the incident with George Floyd has done is expose those barriers to a wider audience. Okay, those barriers have been there for a very long time.
Yeah.
We have to work, absolutely, we have to push to affect change, coalition, reaching across the globe. This is not a one person putting in a long-term plan, all of that. And I'm going to say, this is not, definitely not a but. Keep moving. As an entrepreneur, keep moving. Because that's the only thing you actually can control, right? There's lots we can't control, and there's lots we're going to do to try to affect change, which is essentially the reason I launched this fund. I was not in a position to launch this fund for another 4 to 5 years, but the time is now. So, but from the perspective of an entrepreneur, just keep moving.
Yeah.
Keep moving. Don't stop, but take a break every once in a while. I'd say that. Be very selective of those that you choose as mentors, but also keep in mind, and I'll share why. Be choosy. Also keep in mind, again, if COVID hasn't shown us today that your mentor can be in Singapore, your mentor can be in sub-Saharan Africa, your mentor can be in Brazil, keep that in mind. If you speak to some people and they're not in alignment with with your North Star, what your North Star is, why you're building what you're building, going to just knock on another door. As entrepreneurs, I think that's at a minimum, we learn that we have to knock on multiple doors to get past and achieve whatever goal we need to achieve. But I'd say widen your reach. We are playing a global game now. This is no longer Canada, US. I'm going to play in my neighborhood. I'm going to play with people I'm comfortable with. I can guarantee you that you're going to find people you're more comfortable with in other parts of the world than just your backyard. Leverage that. Take advantage of that. If you have nothing but a smartphone and that's how you're building your business, use that smartphone, connect with people in different parts of the world, and they will serve to be some of your best mentors. On the note of mentors, find mentors that have done what you're doing or something similar to. There might be a lot of people that are willing to help, and their kindness is welcome. At the end of the day, you're on a mission to build something you're passionate about, something you've probably multiple barriers have been presented to you, and you need to get past those barriers. Only you know what your North Star is, meaning there's a reason you started this venture. Only you really know why. And so do your best to find mentors that have either played in your space, they think the way that you do, they align with your North Star, because when the going gets tough, those are the people that are going to understand where you're coming from, right? So just having mentors is nice, but select your mentors, choose your mentors. Sometimes I hear entrepreneurs say, oh, I don't know if I can find a mentor. The globe is your playing field now. The globe is your playing field, number one. And know one thing, mentors, the right ones are excited to see you succeed. They're excited, and they learn as much from you as you learn from them. Yeah. Guaranteed. The right ones are learning something as much as they're teaching you something. The right ones are opening the doors for you. The right ones actually understand that part of your mission and your requirement is the need for somebody to open doors. It's the need for you to be able to call somebody and just vent. It's the need for you to get access to capital. All those things. A mentor can play one or a number of those roles. So it's not such a closely defined definition of a mentor. Just work with people that get you and understand your North Star. They understand why you're building what you're building. And so I'd say, for now, I'd say those two things. Don't stop. Take breaks. Absolutely takes breaks, but just don't stop. Keep moving. You fall, cool, take a break, get up, keep moving. Just keep moving. As long as you keep moving, you can't lose. You might learn something, but you can't lose. So I'd say that's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
And I think I have one more question for you. And I don't know if I kind of quasi asked it before. Let me see. I know I have a few questions that, okay. In this year in particular, we've seen a lot of tech brands and VCs make very bold and loud statements about addressing and fixing race that we see today. How do we solve what is routinely massive intent? So the intent is good. Everybody wants to help. Everybody's like, yeah, let's tweet about it. Let's Instagram about it. High five, Black Lives Matter. But very little manifests in terms of action. Can you speak to them?
Yeah, it's a big question. I think it's the question that, or the problem that we're all really trying to solve here. And so, as you said, like intent does not lead to impact. And I think, as I was saying before, this is an industry where the progress has been painstakingly slow in all areas. And so I think about a couple of different things here. So when I think about just at an interpersonal or self level, I really think that we need to think differently, particularly business leaders, CEOs, anyone who's in the highest positions of power. They need to have that mindset change, as we've been talking about, prioritizing this work and being willing to engage in a process that may at times inhibit profit or slow it down. That requires risk taking, that requires bold convictions, and just really a way of thinking that isn't archetypal of traditional business leaders as we know them. And so when I talk about that self-work, I also think it's how does a leader personally reflect on their own biases that they carry throughout their day and in the world, and how that impacts who they are. And I think that's why this work is particularly hard, because you're asking people to have really hard conversations with themselves about who they are, why and how they lead, and who they want to be. And I obviously it's a lot of self-reflection. And I think very tactically, two different things: the importance of incentives and the importance of external pressure. So internally, ensuring that we're incentivizing business and leaders to make real change and holding them accountable when they're not. So I think companies that do this work well, they embed their D&I goals within performance and bonus structures, and there's actually some sort of consequence if those business goals aren't met the same way any other business goals would or would not be met. And then to this point of external pressure, the reality is that external pressure works. So talking about before how in big tech, the D&I movement was really catalyzed with Google and Microsoft coming out with their workforce representation numbers, in the early 2010s. A lot of that work, that was a result of Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Push Coalition. That was a civil rights movement. And that pressure from those nonprofits alongside media and journalists and activists who are saying tech has to change, that's how those companies made the decisions to put those numbers out there. And who knows what would have happened if that external pressure wasn't there. And so that's why I think as an industry, what we do to work alongside community partners, nonprofits, and people outside of our bubble who have different ways of thinking and different incentives of their own. I think that coalition building, as we're talking about outside of our own industry, is incredibly important. And so, yeah, I would say, as I was saying before, the interpersonal, the self-reflective work that leaders need to do, the internally on an organizational level, the incentives that we need to build into a business, and then thirdly, that external pressure and being open to that is where I think the most change can happen, again, in a place where that change has been hard. So moving forward, I'm trying to think if there are any other questions that we wanted to run through, Giselle. Oh, I have one more for you, and I think we'll be right perfect at our timing, because I think we're ending in about 6 minutes. So, in your work, Giselle, you are attempting to create equity in investment opportunities, which have been out of reach, as we've been talking about, for specific communities for a very long time. So can you share with us your hypothesis and the effectiveness of delivering on this promise? Are you planning on delivering this through normal tech and VC ecosystems? What do you think there?
I guess when you, as soon as you put in the word normal tech and VC ecosystem, so that's a definitely we're not doing normal, because normal is not going to address what we're having a discussion about here. Normal has been going on for a long time, and this is where normal has gotten us. So definitely not normal. But I will say this: it's in line with what I shared earlier. My view on capital and connectivity, and that's the backbone in terms of us as a VC fund. I'm gonna go back for a second, and people might laugh when they say, "Okay, well, I was 12." There are brilliant 12-year-olds building businesses today. Let's start there. Brilliant, but they too, and I'm not gonna say everybody had my experience, but I'm building a VC structure. It's an ecosystem around my experience, because that's my experience. That's what I know. That I'd say in alignment with other founders that I've been like very, very grateful to know and meet, as well as the team, our venture team, which, if anybody doesn't know, come from different parts of the world, and that's again our view that this is a global game, right? It might be, some people might view it as one single problem with, let's say with Black lives, Latin lives, Indigenous lives. This is a global problem, and therefore requires a global solution. Mm-hmm. And so two things: one, definitely capital, but if you look at VCs and how they've been running, it's usually this close-knit club, right? You need to know somebody for that person to introduce you to the VC, so they're going to even look at your pitch deck. Yeah. How do I tell that to a 12-year-old who has no network, doesn't have access to that world, might not even trust that world? Our view is like, no, our fund, there are no rules to presenting yourself to us. Go there, present yourself. Now, does that mean that every company that presents themselves to us is ready for venture capital? No, but we owe it at a minimum. And I was speaking to Hessie about this. She brought up some great points. At a minimum, they deserve to know why that at this point in time, they are not yet ready for investment. And do our best to introduce them to somebody that can get them to that next stage, which, by the way, VC capital is not the be it end all solution to everything. It's just one form of capital, by the way. But if VC is what you're looking for, you believe you should be getting VC capital because you read about it somewhere on Insta, whatever the reason is you came to us, we will not turn you away. Doesn't mean we'll invest, but we'll at least look at to see what you have and make our best efforts to introduce you to somebody else. And that's why we're big on building this VC ecosystem, not just a fund. Yeah. The second thing is, once we do invest, we are literally introducing you to hundreds of advisors. Some people will call them mentors or advisors, doesn't matter. And our advisors, which we are growing, by the way, at a very fast pace, we're very, very excited to be growing this network. Every single advisor that's joined our network has dedicated a certain amount of time monthly, and they understand that they're going to be asked one of two or three things. One, an introduction to somebody, whether it be talent, somebody in the industry that's going to help those companies grow. They're going to be introduced to what we call anchor clients, opportunities for them to actually grow their revenue. This is a business, right? And so a lot of these founders don't have a network. Once again, business is often done not with capital, but with connectivity. Mm-hmm. The third is their expertise. All of them have been made aware, doesn't mean that they can all offer that, by the way, but they've been made aware that if they're going to join our advisor network, they are going to be asked at some point in time for one of those three things. So basically we're saying, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised that you get asked that, and hopefully you can assist in whichever way you can. So, that's what it is for us. We're opening things up a little bit. So individuals out there who haven't even had a chance to put their pitch deck forward, or don't feel comfortable, or they can't get access to the club, right? There's no club here. You're Black, you're Latino, you have an accent, come, we get it, right? You've got drive, you've got your North Star, you know what you want, you're not there yet, that's cool, come, we'll figure it out. We'll, at a minimum, like I said, we will introduce you to somebody else, or if you're that close and there's some tweaking or a conversation that we can have, with as much capacity as we can have, we're going to share that with you. And at least like I said, at an absolute minimum, like I say, this is like going to an audition. You go, you audition, at least you deserve to know why you didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
And just those things alone, I think, help build people and empower them and help them prepare to go back and pitch again.
Yeah.
Go back and pitch, go tweak it. There's no map to building a company. There's zero map. So if we can give you feedback so you can go back and improve, whether you're pitching to us or you realize a different type of funding is available for you and it's a better option for you, cool, then that's what you need to do. But we're not going to turn anybody away. I mean, if we get 10,000, pitch decks tomorrow, well, I mean, be easy on us. It's going to take us a little while to get around to it. But the point is, there is no cliquey club here, right? We get it. Our entire team are teams of entrepreneurs. They've bought, sold businesses. They've raised capital. And there's multiple languages that we speak. Stop by. The worst that can happen is this is not the venture capital for you. And hopefully we can introduce you to somebody else.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers the question.
I love that. I think that is a perfect place to, and you're getting a lot of +1s on that, Giselle, and I've got to add my +1. I think that's so incredibly important what you're doing, and thank you for all the work that you're doing and continue to do. And always a pleasure to speak with you.
You're awesome. You're awesome. You're awesome. A few times that we've spoken, hats off. I hope it's not the last time that we're going to connect. It's been a pleasure.
Same. Yeah, it really has.
And to Mia and everybody that put together this event, salute. I salute you because I can only imagine how much work this was. And again, as part of this coalition, I appreciate being part of this discussion.
Absolutely.
And we appreciate you too speaking from the heart today. The 2 days and next day, everything has been so authentic. Everything has been so much about shared experiences, lived experiences. I cannot thank you both enough. Have a great rest of your day wherever you are. And if you would like to stay with us for the Bangram, some dance moves for the next 5 minutes, and we have 2 more sessions coming up after that. But I really thank you a lot and hope to see you in another moment.
Great. Thank you all so much. Congrats on a great summit.
Take care.